Hey guys and girls, today we are jumping on with our athlete and coach, Mary Rossi, and we're going to be talking a little bit about everything. We're going to be covering some of her weightlifting and weightlifting experience, talking about meditation and kind of where that takes place in weightlifting or in sport or in life in general. She's also a ex-gymnast just like I was, and so she might have some insight as well on kind of the body weight strength training and things that have transferred over from kind of that gymnastics into weightlifting. So we'll discuss a little bit about that, and then just kind of talk to her in general about some of her experiences in weightlifting. She's been doing it for a while, and kind of what her long-term goals are, what the future looks like for her in that realm, and then we'll kind of just see where the conversation goes. So we're going to hang out here for just a little bit and let people kind of start jumping on, and then we'll get her in here and we'll start talking to her about some of that stuff. If you all do have questions for us, either beforehand or as we go, it can be any topic. We're going to be covering a lot of different stuff, so it doesn't have to be just weightlifting and weightlifting technique or anything like that. But if you do have questions about that, we're both coaches in that area, so feel free to ask any questions covering weightlifting. But if we go into anything else and you're curious about it or have questions about it, definitely ask us. We'd love to kind of interact with you guys as well. So we're just going to hang out, let a few people jump on. We'll let Mary get in here, and then we'll start chatting. Let's see. Got a couple Blue Wave members jumping on right now. It's great. Again, let me know if y'all have questions. Drop them into the comments, and we'll be sure to try to cover some of that. I'd be curious to also know how many of y'all, let's go and get her connected real quick. Looks like she's on here. Let's let her jump on.
Hi.
What's up?
Wait, what did you say?
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
What are you up to?
I'm on a walk right now. What about you?
Good. I'm in a small office that's very cluttered right now. So,
That's nice.
yeah. I mean, maybe being on a walk would be a little bit nicer, but
Yeah, I thought it would be nice.
can't complain.
Change the aesthetic up a bit.
Yeah, please do. So,
Yeah.
um, real quick, so just so people kind of know a little bit about you too. Um, Currently, right now, you're one of our weightlifting coaches. You're
Yes.
also one of our athletes. You compete on kind of the national circuit right now, and we've got some long-term goals to get you up to the international circuit. Uh,
Yes.
you've been coaching for us for a while, but you're also not new to coaching. You've been helping out with the youth club, but then you've also started and been running the UTD weightlifting club as well, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and so you've been coaching that for a while. I think you were probably coaching that before you even came on with me.
Yeah, I think about a year and a half now.
Yeah,
So,
cool.
yeah. Huh?
Very cool. Um, Outside of that, tell us a little bit about yourself. You know, your background in other sports before weightlifting, getting into coaching, and then anything else you think might be relevant.
Yeah, so I started out with gymnastics as my main sport that I did for about 12 years. And then I ended up quitting that just because of injuries and other things. And then I didn't really do anything for about 5 years. And then I started getting bored and I tried out CrossFit. And then CrossFit was too much cardio for me. And I realized I really only liked going on the heavy days, which kind of geared me more towards weightlifting. And so I just kind of went with that. Um, yeah, so that's how I got started into weightlifting. And then coaching. I never really planned to do any coaching, but
Hmm.
people just kept asking me for advice and tips here and there, and so I just kind of like fell into that position too. So,
That's
and it's
cool.
been cool. It's been a nice learning experience. So,
Yeah. Which do you prefer, athlete, coach, or you don't? You kind of like them both?
athlete, I like being an athlete.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
You find
yeah.
it. I mean, obviously, being an athlete, and especially in our sport, it's also very stressful. But do you find coaching to be more stressful, or competing to be, or being an athlete being more stressful, or it's just different stresses?
Different stretches, but for me, coaching is more stressful because I feel like there's so many different things that work for different people. And I found it's taken me like years and years to figure out what works for me. So then
Yeah,
to kind of have that stress of figuring that out for other athletes, and then also not really having as much control in competitions, and I'm not the one competing. I just feel like it puts more pressure and stress onto me. So I like to have the personal responsibility. So that's why I still get stressed competing, for myself, but it's just, I just prefer it.
yeah,
So,
yeah, for
yeah,
sure. No, I
yeah,
agree. It's very hard to, you know, when an athlete doesn't have a great meet or bombs out or misses a lift or anything like that too. It's also really hard as a coach to not be like, is that did I do something wrong?
yeah, because I always take some responsibility for it.
Yeah, yes.
So,
You got the
yeah,
athlete going through it, and then also the coach going through it, and I agree.
yeah,
I think as a coach, we try to control as many elements as we can, like during competition. But when it comes down to it, really the athlete's got to make lifts on the platform.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Definitely.
Um, cool. So there are some things that I find to be unique to you as an athlete. One, we have a similar background.
Yeah,
My background was gymnastics as well. Wasn't much of an athlete. Wasn't a great gymnast, but got into coaching gymnastics, so I stayed in it for a really long time. But you doing gymnastics for 12 years, do you feel like that was some sort of foundation? Do you think there was some importance in going through gymnastics in relation to weightlifting?
yeah, I think gymnastics is great for really any athletic background that you have. I think it's a great precursor for any sport you want to do.
Mhm.
So I'll definitely if I have kids, I'll definitely put them in gymnastics. But I think that has been the biggest benefit to my athleticism because I started when I was 3. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
I agree. I think every kid, even if they don't do gymnastics long term or compete in it, just what you get out of it is just, to me, significantly higher than just saying, all right, my kid is going to be a baseball player, and then you just make them play baseball.
yeah,
It covers
yeah,
so many more elements of athletics. And then if they feel like that's something that they want to do, great. But if not, I agree. I think it transfers over as far as just the balance, the coordination, the body awareness, like all that is really
yeah.
ingrained in gymnastics that you just don't get as much of that in other sports.
Yeah, because it is really hard on the body. So it's for me, it was hard to do long term, but I think definitely doing it at a young age is really beneficial.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because I
absolutely.
do think it has contributed to some of the injuries I have now. But yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. So that being said, what do you feel like? Um, so what do you feel like there was in gymnastics, and what you took from gymnastics? What is it? What are some of those things that you still think are important for weightlifters to continue to do? Like, what would be like the beneficial movements that you like as far as body weight strength training?
I really like, honestly, a lot of the stuff that you program, a lot of the body weight stuff that you program, I really like. And that's what I liked about CrossFit too, actually, just to bring that in, was I really liked the gymnastics movements, like handstands, pull-ups, like ring work, that stuff. I think it's really good. I think it's really good for balance and stability and just like the mobility aspect of it too. I still do my stretching routine from gymnastics. I've never given that up. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think something that I need to be better at doing is sometimes I get so focused on weightlifting that I get away from some of those body weight movements that I really do like that I think had big transfer over and was beneficial to me because like overhead's always been a strength for me. And
Yeah.
I think even for you, you were jerking more weight than you were ever cleaning. I think that's
Yeah.
common,
Yeah.
yeah, for you.
Yeah. Gymnasts are known for like the upper body strength.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And
we're just it's just an upper body dominant sport.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think that transfers over really well to weightlifting, especially for women, because I think a lot of times women tend to have an easier time putting on strength like in their lower body. But I find it to
Yeah.
take a lot longer for them to develop that overhead strength. And I think when they have kind of that gymnastics background, that like overhead stability and strength is there. And so then it's just like get everything else strong.
Yeah, so it's like the opposite for me. I really have to work on like my legs and my hips and stuff like that. But like I don't feel like I ever really need to do much upper body stuff.
Yeah, it was really hard for me to go from such an upper body dominant sport to such a lower body dominant sport.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. I've noticed a lot of gymnasts have hip issues too. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I had similar problems. I don't know if it's because in gymnastics we also do a lot of, in weightlifting we create some imbalances uh, a lot of times because we split with one side over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
And that's something that you and me have targeted a lot with you, where we'll now go a majority of your training into a power jerk until
Yeah.
like leading up to a meet, and then you just start splitting.
Yeah, because I really don't need to work split jerk that much. And I found power jerk has helped more with like explosiveness for me and because you
Yeah,
have to get the bar higher, I've noticed.
yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah,
Yes,
I just think it's helped. Yeah.
yeah. So I think when somebody has good footwork, uh, the the power jerk should be utilized more often
Yeah, I
because
agree.
you're decreasing the amount of repetitions that somebody's twisting or splitting on one side over and over and over, which decreases
Yeah.
imbalances. But I wonder
Yeah.
if in gymnastics, because we also do so much tumbling and vaulting, and for women, they're also doing tumbling movements on the balance beam and stuff like that. I wonder if
Yeah.
in like that split in lunge position over and over and over is like also a contributing factor to some of that.
I think so, definitely. And just because I feel like you always lead with the shoulders too. And so your hips don't really just get that much work. It's just very upper body dominant. And then, yeah, you're always doing your lunges and round offs on that one side. So
Yeah,
there's always going to be a strength difference.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
interesting. They're leading with the shoulders. I like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think gymnasts should incorporate more strength training. I've heard, a lot of teams are now, but when I did gymnastics, I didn't do, I mean,
yeah.
we do like body weight and conditioning, but we never did any like time under tension. And I think that would have really helped with some of my injuries.
Yeah, I did agree. We did like a bunch of body weight training. We did a bunch of strength training for that, but we did little to no weights. And when we did, we rarely did anything significant. It might be like some weighted walking lunges or something like that. And we're talking
Yeah,
little to no weight. And
yeah,
and I ended up having knee issues. I tore my ACL in gymnastics. And I 100% think that if I had been doing weighted squats, like some form of like more lower body strength training, that I could have easily avoided that injury.
yeah, I agree. I had a lot of knee issues, a lot of back issues.
Yeah.
It was not fun.
Yeah, areas that I don't think that the body weight strength stuff can really target that well. Like you can build up to being able to do, like a pistol squat, which is, a good amount of weight on one leg, but
Yeah,
it's still like very like that's about the limit that you get. And then you're still only
yeah,
getting unilateral training too.
yeah, it's just not the same.
Yeah, it just isn't. So I
Yeah,
agree. I think gymnastics, and I think you're right. I think there's more information out there now showing that gymnasts need to do more just general S&C, strength and conditioning. And
yeah,
uh, but back then, I mean, everything was on apparatus. Everything was on the floor.
hmm,
None of that was being done. And if I were to go back and do it again, I mean, for sure, you know, weighted squats and pulls. I'd be doing
yeah,
that every single week. If
yeah,
I had kids training again, I mean, we would be doing for sure just some general lower body weighted exercises. And
yeah,
the upper body develops really, really well with body weight movements because you can always do a lot of complex stuff with the upper body, but your foundation is like your lower body. So to really get that foundation strong, I think weightlifting movements is the way to go as far as being able to create the stability that we need, especially with impacting stuff that we had in gymnastics. I mean, it just
Yeah.
my ankles and knees just tore them up.
Yeah, it was so bad. I had braces, tape, icing every day. It was not fun. I don't
Uh,
miss it. I really don't.
so you said that you did gymnastics for many years. You took some time off, did
Hmm.
CrossFit, decided you didn't like a lot of the conditioning stuff in CrossFit. It's
Yeah.
funny because it was very similar to what I did, and I think that if you like a sport like gymnastics, you're probably also going to like a sport like weightlifting because
Yeah.
as much as gymnastics has a team element to it, it's still you on your apparatus. It's you competing by yourself. You're not doing any kind
Yeah.
of group, training where you're relying on other people. And weightlifting, I think, is the exact same way. Do you think that was part of also the lure of weightlifting from gymnastics?
Um, yeah, I would say so. I think too, what was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought. Um, oh, I was gonna say I liked the predictability because in
Mm,
gymnastics, you know the routines you're gonna do, they never change. So you practice them every day and you can perfect them, right? But in CrossFit, a lot of times it's like a week before or a couple weeks before you find out the workouts. And
mm.
there's just, for me, it was overwhelming because there was just so many movements to perfect in CrossFit and so many different combinations to practice. But in weightlifting, you know the movements you're going to do, you know how many chances you get.
Yeah.
So I really liked the predictability about it.
Yeah, as far as an athlete goes, because I'm motivated by competition. I'm not really motivated by I'm gonna just work out for the sake of working out. I usually kind of have
Yeah.
to, and I think weightlifting feeds that really well because it's very easy to set goals. This week I'm going to try to do this number. Next week I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Or if you're going to try to qualify for an event, you know what the number is. All right, I have
Right.
to
Yeah.
train till I get to this number.
Yeah. You don't have to like compete with other times and things like that, which you won't know until like the very end
Yeah, yeah, you
in
really don't know
CrossFit.
what you're up against until you go do it. And a lot of times you don't even know what you're getting yourself into until you get
Yeah.
event. Where in weightlifting, yeah, you usually have a pretty good plan going into the meet. Maybe like a secondary plan in case a lift is off or something here and there. But for the most part, it's all pretty lined out and timed, and you know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked that.
So
I'm a
that leads
perfectionist like myself.
so it leads me into some other questions. You're kind of my go-to person sometimes when talking about for lack of a better term, like mental health or clarity or focus.
Yeah.
Uh, and you and me have had a lot of conversations about meditation.
Yeah.
So, what kind of role does meditation currently take in your life or um, in the past?
So for me, meditation, what I've gained from it is I feel like it's mostly helped me with awareness and just being more in tune with my body and kind of letting my ego quiet down. I
Mm,
wouldn't, because I get a lot of competition anxiety, which I've always had in gymnastics and now in weightlifting. But I know, and like meditation didn't necessarily fix it, but it helped me become more aware of it and how to fix it throughout, my daily routine
mhm,
because my ego wasn't in the way, being super loud. And I was just able to kind of empty my mind. And then it's kind of like I felt like answers would just kind of come to me, like my intuition. And I was just able to be more aware about it. So,
And when you say
and it's relaxing when I do it too. Sorry to cut you off.
no,
But it's relaxing when I do it too. And I noticed like it'd be relaxing, but then I would kind of just go like straight back to anxiety. So like it doesn't really like fix the issue, but I think it can just help you become more aware of how to fix it yourself, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah, it can play almost a reset. You become more aware,
Hmm.
and then you can kind of bring it back to whatever, bring it back
Yeah.
to the outside of that. When you say ego, what exactly do you mean by ego?
So like my ego, I just would think of that as kind of like my pride, my insecurities,
Hmm.
other people's thoughts and opinions. Sometimes I would have an issue kind of with discernment and figuring out, okay, what do I really think? Or what am I just thinking? Or like, what other people think, am I just taking that on as my own?
Yeah.
So when I can kind of just quiet my ego down, I can just kind of figure out what I really think. Because
I
I
like.
had a habit of ego lifting a lot. That's what I call it in the past, where I just go really heavy, do stupid numbers that I probably shouldn't be doing, but my ego and my pride is kind of getting in the way. And I felt like I was burning out a lot, getting really injured and things like that. And so when I really put time into meditation, I just kind of realized, if I really want to do this and if I really care about longevity in the sport, then I really need to slow it down and be smart about when my technique breaks down. And I need to put my ego aside and just do what's best for my body and my
Yeah,
goals in the long run.
I like that. I like that you've been able to also come up with like a term for you, which is ego,
Yeah.
that covers a lot of things. It's basically when you get distracted from being able to, think for yourself to some extent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's really cool. I think
Yeah.
that's you know, one of the lures that I think people have with sport and, specifically weightlifting is I think that it's meditative in itself. And I think that's
Hmm.
partly why people really enjoy it because when you're performing a snatch, you're not thinking about your taxes. You're not thinking about, what somebody else said to you the other day. Like you're in that moment. But those moments are
Yeah.
fleeting. They're very, very short.
Yeah. But it requires 100% presence
Agreed.
to
And
do it.
that and I think that's why some people latch onto it, but they're not recognizing that partly why they're latching on to sports or exercises or weightlifting, snatch, clean and jerk, those kind of things, is because there's these moments where you're completely just focused on one thing. You're so present
Yeah.
during time. When you throw something or you're catching something, you're so present in that time that nothing else is bothering you, nothing else is going on, nothing else is coming.
Right. Yeah.
And I think sometimes people don't recognize, because I think meditation can sometimes get some people just aren't open to meditation at all.
Yeah. Yeah. It can. Yeah.
and,
Definitely.
and and it might just, and I think sometimes it's just because of the word meditation, where they're not really realizing what meditation actually is. And it's that
Yeah.
ability to be present, be present in yourself and where you're at and what you're doing, as opposed to, like what you said, have all this outside information coming in that's not being constructive.
Hmm. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. Some people just think it's hippie BS, but
Yeah. But
yeah.
but people don't realize that they're doing it. They're just not taking the time to recognize it. And now
Yeah.
they might be doing it in very small stints, and so it might just be like they did a snatch, but they don't realize why they're really enjoying that. And I think if people can sometimes recognize the reason why they're really enjoying that is could be like an avenue to being more open to doing something like meditation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good way to put it because I never really thought about wording it that way. But
Yeah,
yeah. Hmm.
yeah, yeah. And but when you tell somebody that they're going to sit quiet for 10 minutes, some people feel like they're going to lose their minds.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to meditate. You can do it going on a walk, in the shower,
Hmm.
in the car, even kind of maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a lot of ways to do it. It doesn't have to be boring or
Um,
anything.
do you do any specific meditation? Do you change it up? Do you do guided? What kind of meditation do you typically do?
Yeah, if I'm going on a walk, I'll just kind of I don't really listen to anything. It's just more of a mindful meditation. So just focusing on my senses and just
Mhm.
noticing and being aware of what's happening in the present. At night, a lot of people prefer meditating in the morning, but I usually do it at night right before I go to bed, and that's when I'll do guided meditations. And I've noticed it's good to stick with the same one for about a month to really get the benefit out of it, and then I'll shut up after that. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
like that repeating similar ones. That way you kind of get to the point where you've, for lack of better terms, have kind of more perfected that. You've really been able to practice it and get what you can out of it.
Yeah, just to like really let the message like digest, you know.
Yeah, and I like what you said. I think people would, you can get a lot out of like taking a walk if you're really in
Mhm.
tune. with everything that's going on. Or sometimes it's me, and I'll do something as simple as while I'm walking, all I'm focusing on is the feeling in my feet on the ground, the different texture
Oh,
changes,
that's good.
different feelings, the different pressures, the different balance. And so I'll decide that my focus is going to be just this during my
Yeah.
walk. And then I just kind of let that happen. And you'd be surprised at how much information you take in.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
But
Definitely.
learning something like that, I mean, and then so how do you think meditation has been able to transfer back over to weightlifting then?
I think over time it's just helped with a lot of the issues that I have surrounding weightlifting. So just competition anxiety, being prideful about hitting certain numbers in training. And so I
Mhm.
think it's just kind of helped me alleviate a lot of those stresses over time. It has taken time. It doesn't happen overnight. And I think some people don't want to be patient enough to let it work. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's taken months, but it's working for me.
I mean, I'll be the first to admit that I'm not great at meditating. Like I get distracted very easily. Um,
Yeah.
and so some people think of that as like they can't do it or they're not getting anything out of it. But part of like what I find the benefit is when I get distracted and when I get, thinking about something else, my ability to recognize that I'm being distracted and
Yeah.
pull myself back in, even though it happens. It's part of like the positive I'm getting out of it is that ability to just recognize when it's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, with that too, I mean, it's normal to get distracted. I think everyone will always be somewhat distracted no matter how long you've been doing meditation. I think it's about too just not forcing yourself to think about nothing. It's okay to have thoughts come in and out. Just can observe them. It's just try not to attach to the thought or just, to let it go further. But it's really just allowing your body to do what it needs to do. And sometimes maybe that's a thought you need to process. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Um, what about like physically? So have you noticed that there's any like do you feel like you get more out of let's say you've been practicing meditation and now we're setting up to lift weights. Do you feel that there's any benefit or transfer over on your ability to be more in tune with your movement?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's definitely helped me become more aware of my body and just the technical aspect of weightlifting. Um, oh, sorry, just reading a message. um, so yeah, no, I do think it definitely transfers over. It definitely affects mind, body, and soul.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
If somebody were just like wanting to try meditation, what would you suggest as far as like a starting point?
I would say start out small. Just do like 5 or 10 minutes. Just look up a guided meditation on YouTube and, yeah, just do 5 or 10 minutes. Or if you don't want to do like the music route, you can just go on a walk and just try and be aware of your five senses and just kind of name what you're seeing, what you're feeling, smelling, hearing, things like that.
Yeah.
Taste, the taste in your mouth. So it's not just like nothing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I I use the Calm app. It's
Yeah,
and they're mostly
I've
guided
heard of
meditations.
that.
Those tend to help me the most because it reminds me when to come back. It'll kind of
Yeah.
give you direction or some prompting, So they've got things as far as like if you're going on a walk, okay, let's be very aware of the smells right now. And then you just kind of
Yeah.
focus on that. And then, all right, let's go back to visual. What are you seeing? Bright, dark colors, textures. And so
Yeah.
for me, those guided meditations are, always very, very beneficial. But I even like the very simple ones where it can. There's some others where it's pretty silent. There's not much noise going on, but every now and then it's a very simple like ringing of a bell, and it's almost just this
Oh, yeah.
just like
I've done this.
you're distracted, come back. It's a
Yeah.
reminder to make sure that you're continuing to come back to whatever you're meditating on.
Yeah.
Um,
Those are really good. that's really good, especially if you do get distracted easily.
Yeah. So something that's like a cue, hey, remember what you're doing, is very beneficial for me.
Yeah.
Uh, so let's talk weightlifting. So right now, we've kind of like what you just said, being able to, we kind of have fallen into like a good period right now because there isn't a whole lot of meets coming up. There isn't a whole lot of, we have a long time before we have any major competitions.
Yeah.
And you were talking about kind of this ego lifting. So I think this would be a good time to also like talk to others about, you don't need to always be trying to, jump back in at 100%. You need to spend the time to kind of rebuild, spend the time for on technique and that kind of stuff. So talk a little bit about what you're doing right now, because you've done a really good job since getting back on the program
Thank
at
you.
very like slowly working your way back up.
Yeah, I think the most important thing when you're getting back into it is to make sure you have a stable foundation. So anytime I notice my technique start to go away, I'll stop at that weight or I'll go down a little bit because I don't want to start working in these bad habits at higher weights. I'd rather go less in weight and then build back up with a strong foundation.
Yeah,
So it's been really good for injury prevention. And it
yeah,
just looks
definitely.
prettier. Your lifts will look prettier. They'll be more
Yeah,
aesthetic.
then your Instagram looks a lot better.
Yeah, exactly.
um,
So,
yeah, so that's, to me, that would almost be like the ideal, and it's so hard to get it across to people. Now you've been in
yeah,
this for long enough now to where you've been through like, ramping up too quickly and getting hurt, and maybe that's just part of the process for some people to get to the point where you're at. But the ideal program to me would be, you kind of work up until there's a little bit of a technical breakdown, and
yeah,
then you practice there, or you practice just slightly underneath that technical breakdown.
right. Yeah. And I
What,
may be a little too cautious coming into that, but ideally, yeah.
yeah, what caught you to, well, you're also super critical of your technique, probably more
Yeah.
critical of your technique. Um,
Yeah.
so some lists where I'd be like, yes, you can go up. You'd be like, I'm going to work here, but that's good. I'd
Yeah.
rather caution on that.
Yeah.
But
Better safe than sorry, my motto.
yeah, what helped you kind of get to that point though?
I think, well, I had a lot of injuries last year. And like before this, I was in some amount of pain, but I have a high enough pain tolerance to where I would just work through it and just wasn't that big of an issue to where I. But when it got to the point where I had to take a few months off, I realized something needed to change, and I couldn't go back to
Yeah,
doing what I was doing if I cared about longevity in the sport.
yeah,
You have to think like,
yeah,
for your future self. You have to think like 5 years from now, not just the next competition.
absolutely. Especially when, you know, if you got goals that you really want to meet, trying to fast track to those goals are typically not the route you want to take, especially in
Yeah.
something like weightlifting, where we're trying to increase the weights that our body can carry.
Yeah, it's a very slow sport, in my opinion. You have to be
Mhm.
patient with it. I think there's some sports, especially some endurance sports, where you can get good at it a lot faster. But weightlifting, it's so technical. It's strength, it's explosiveness, it's timing, everything. And it's just slower. You just have to be patient,
Yeah,
in my
yeah.
opinion.
Conversation with that, with the I don't know who I was talking to the other day, about how people need to make sure that even if they come in at a pretty high level, there's almost always going to be like this plateauing point.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to take the time at some point to just put in the repetition and
Yeah.
weights dial back and just build for a while.
Hmm.
And it's not a sport that
Sorry.
it's of like 1 or 2 years and you're where you want to be. It's really a
Yeah.
sport 6+ years if you really want to try to get everything that you want out of the sport, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Strength just takes time. It
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
does.
And when you're having to work on, strength and technique and mobility, and when you're having to work on all those things at once, which is mostly what every, senior athlete has to do, it just, all those things are a slow process.
Yeah,
You're not going to
yeah.
just gain a bunch of mobility overnight.
Yeah, and I think too, like, when you start out, you get the newbie gains. And so I think people,
Yeah. I think you're freezing on me a little bit. You might have to go walking again. Can you hear me now?
um, yeah, I'm like paused on the screen though. Can you see me?
Yeah. Yeah, we're getting audio though, so we can keep talking. But you were talking about there we go. You were talking about kind of the newbie gains and how I think that creates this excitement. Now I got video, but I don't have audio. See if she sees that. You there? We'll let Mary see if Mary goes somewhere and she can jump back on. Because I kind of want to talk to her a little bit about the uh, the new athlete. There we go. I want to talk to her a little bit about the new athletes kind of jumping into the programming a little too quickly. And let's try to add her back in there. But yeah, one of the biggest issues with new athletes is they're able to progress so quickly.
Sorry, I'm back.
It's all good. Yeah, because I wanted to chat with you a little bit because you were talking about how athletes can get really, really motivated and excited in like their first year because they have this like huge spike in numbers and they get good or they get better very, very quickly before having
Yeah,
to, or injuries happen or they plateau or something comes along.
yeah,
Um, and I think that that's I, to me, I've almost gotten to the point where now I think that that's just like a process that athletes almost have to go through.
yeah,
It's almost hard to get an athlete to just pump the brakes right from the beginning,
yeah.
unless you just have this very unique person or personality. But for the most part, people are going to try to increase their numbers or qualify as quickly as they can.
Yeah, it's a lot easier with youth athletes because they don't really know. They don't really
That,
understand. They just do what they're told. At least mine do. So, but yeah, I've noticed with older athletes, it's a lot harder. So I do prefer working with youth and juniors, I've noticed. No
and
offense
that's
to older people.
no, no, that's great because I really don't prefer working with youth and juniors.
Yeah, there we go.
Juniors not so bad. Well, even youth I don't mind working with if
They're so
they're,
cute. They're
well, the cute's
adorable.
not my motivator.
Oh.
um I mean, they have to be very like they have to be very disciplined, so if they're disciplined youth, like, I've got no problem. But if I'm the one having to
Yeah.
discipline them and I'm the one having to like reel them in, like, I have a really hard time with that. And I don't know if I got jaded as a gymnastics coach or what,
Yeah.
but
See, it's nice at the school because they have a strength and conditioning class too, where I feel like that's where they learn their discipline because that coach is very like hardcore, and whereas I'm, not. So, but they've already learned that from them, so it just kind of carries over to weightlifting. So
yeah, that's
it's
nice.
nice.
CJ was talking about that, what he does. CJ Del Basso. He was
Yeah.
talking about he runs a PE class, kind of like a strength and conditioning class, and within that, he finds the kids that are, self-controlled, disciplined, and then he just grabs from there and pulls them into weightlifting.
Yeah.
So he kind of seeks out that personality. But for you, that's good. They have that, they're getting it somewhere else, so that way they kind of already know what they're getting themselves into when they go into weightlifting.
Yeah.
But I think USAW has also done a good job because the youth national numbers are actually pretty obtainable numbers, and they're pretty low numbers. And I
Yeah.
think that's
I
really
agree.
good because you don't have kids trying to do what adults do or senior athletes do, where they're like, here's this really high number, I'm going to try to get to it as fast as I can.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
it's really not about numbers. At least I don't think it's about numbers for youth. I think that's when you really need to lay in the foundation. It's all about technique and
Mhm.
just really ingraining that, because you have so much time. If you start at a young age, you have so much time to build that strength. Because I started weightlifting, I think, when I was like 20 or 21. So
Mhm.
I wish I had the opportunity to do it when I was younger.
Yeah, because if you can lay that foundation of technique early on, and this is kind of like a system that a lot of international weightlifting has, like everything, a lot of countries outside of the United States, is they're able to teach these young kids how to be very technically proficient, you
Yeah.
know, by the age of, 8, 9 years old. And then once they start going through puberty, they can start strength training them. And so
Mhm.
if technique is there and they're really comfortable with the barbell, then all you're really having to do is just get the athlete stronger.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's a good system.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so I think that's it. Whereas like with like what you just said, starting at 20 years old, you're having to try to learn the technique, perfect the technique, and get strong at the same time, and make sure that we're doing all the injury prevention and the mobility.
Yeah.
It's like you're having to do everything as
Full-time
opposed.
job.
Yeah, exactly. Having to do a lot more, and then on top of that, you also have to be an adult and make sure that you're, paying your bills and all the above. It's just much harder. It's,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
if you're right, if that foundation's laid, if they have that, if they're really comfortable with the barbell already, and all they're really having to do at that point is just progressively get stronger year after year after year. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's the future of, Olympians and so on.
Yeah, it would just be cool if there was more money in our sport too, because like all those pro basketball players, they get to just do everything, center their life around, basketball and then, family if they have it. So, but for weightlifters, there's really no money in our sport, even though it's an Olympic sport. And so most of us, we still have to do, even like the highest level, a lot of them still have to do full-time jobs to support
Yeah,
it. So it's unfortunate, but
and most of them are still a lot of the high level athletes are coaches as well, because
yeah. Hmm.
and so even some of the stipends, I think the highest paying stipend out there right now is like maybe $4,000 or $5,000 a month.
Yeah, which I mean that's definitely livable, but
Which,
not
yeah,
many
is
people get it.
doable, but when you compare it to like a NBA player, an NFL player,
It's
that
nothing.
nothing,
Nothing. Yeah.
it's really. And these are the people that are going out there and competing in our Olympics and representing our country, and
Yeah.
they're making a not so great living. I mean, again, like you said, it's livable and you can be comfortable on that for sure. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's a poor income, but it shows you where like our priorities end up kind of laying. You know,
Yeah, it's just not as entertaining to people, we don't have as much of an audience. So, I mean, it makes sense. I get it, but
I don't
but
know
it's
that it makes.
okay. Why?
I think I think it makes sense because more people have played the other sports. It's like everybody's now grown up playing baseball, soccer, football. So then I think they just are more invested, and so they like watching it more because it's just things that they were around. I think if more people were around weightlifting, I feel like they would find more?
I don't know. I don't find it like super entertaining to watch weightlifting unless it's like people I specifically know, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I don't
Um,
go and just watch
but
weight.
I get kind of bored, because it is the same thing like every single lift. Whereas basketball, it's like there's plays you don't know what plays are going to be done, and
True. I think we could do a better job at showing more excitement in our sports. But you're right. It usually isn't really fun to watch a session until you're down to the last like three people competing against each other.
yeah, yeah.
So it's like you got to get through all these other lifts
And there's a lot
until
of like wait times, with like rest periods and the 2 minute clock and things like that. Whereas basketball and other sports are just so much more fast paced. So
I think what they need to do is they need to start filming the back room.
yeah, that's more exciting. That's where, all the magic happens.
Yeah, that's where we're running around crazy, running up to the table, making changes, burning
Yeah.
a tip, making jumps over other people. You're watching, I mean, and there's so many lifts going on at one time too. You can
Yeah.
watch these high level lifters, and so to it's drives me crazy watching like the video feeds of like nationals, and you watch a lifter take a lift, and then they just walk off, and then you're just staring at an empty platform for about a minute before another
Yeah.
athlete. I was like, why not pan to the back and get some video of the Olympian that's warming up on their, getting a few warm up attempts in. Like, why not spend a little bit of that in between time filming in the back?
Yeah. You should talk to someone and get them to do
I
it.
don't have that. I don't have that kind of pull.
Yeah, sure you do. You
But
know
yeah,
people.
but to me, to me as a coach, it's super fast paced if you're in the back.
Yeah, it is, definitely. Even as an athlete, I feel like I really don't rest at all. I know I am, but it just doesn't seem like it with everything going on.
Yeah, yeah. The only quiet time like an athlete has is like between snatch and clean and jerk.
And even then, that goes by so fast. I feel like
It
I
does.
have no rest in between.
You got time to like run to the restroom real quick, eat some
Yeah,
candy, and start moving around again.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
stressful.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. So how are y'all getting more? So like with the school, like what's how are y'all even pulling interest in some of the strength and conditioning kids? Like what do they do any of the lifts in their strength and conditioning program, or like what's kind of
Hmm.
like the motivator?
Yeah, yeah, they do that, and then the coaches talk about it as well. So they kind of offer it on the side to work on more explosiveness. I feel like
That's
they kind of do, yeah, and like they cater it like towards football too. Tell people, oh, this will help with football, and try and tell them that it will cater to their other sports. So, and then when they do that, I get them into weightlifting. Say, forget
yeah,
football,
yeah.
forget basketball.
And you're like doing those other sports.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, I think you know, and with youth, they're probably going to be playing multiple sports anyways,
yeah,
and
which is
that would
fine.
be
They're healthy.
agreed. Yeah, yeah, and to show that it's like a sport that you can play and you can train along with other stuff too, because I
Yeah,
think that's why some of us like to get into it is because it covers a lot of things. So you're kind of doing you know, you're working on your mobility, you're working on your strength, you're getting your exercise in, but you're also practicing for the sport that you're going to play. So it's not
yeah,
like you have to do, you have to go do a bunch of like throwing drills as a pitcher and then go hit the gym and do your strength training and then you have to go run through plays. Like we really don't have to do that. You can almost do everything you want to during your 2.5 hour training session.
yeah. We got a question. You wanna answer that?
Any long snatch and clean and jerk complexes you'd recommend for the beginning of a high volume phase? You got any complexes that you enjoy?
That I enjoy.
Yeah, that might be a trick question there.
My
Uh,
phone's about to die, just FYI. Actually, I can walk back to my car. But that I
it's
enjoy,
fine.
not really.
We're gonna give you about 2 minutes.
I
Some of my
liked
favorite.
I liked the
Go ahead.
clean one we did. It hurt, but I liked it. I think it
Yeah,
was like power clean or full clean, two hang cleans, and then two power jerks or
yeah,
split jerks.
yeah. I'm also a big fan. I do this one a lot where we'll do cleans plus front squats before the jerk.
I hate those.
So yeah, so if you're trying to get like more squat volume in, like that's a really good one. So do a clean or a variation of the clean and then do X amount of front squats and then add a jerk or multiple jerks to the end of that. And then if you're looking for like more on the pulling phase, one you see me do all the time is multiple pulls before like a clean or a snatch. So you might do three pulls plus snatch
I
instead
like
of
that.
or volume on the pulls. And then I always like those complexes because then you can progress in the complex by just decreasing the reps as you go through the complex for 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So you go 3+1 to 2+1, 1+1. So then you're also kind of building up that. But those are usually like some of my go-to is if I'm doing volume, I'm usually focusing on either the y'all's leg strength, overhead strength, or your squatting strength, your pulling strength, or your overhead strength. So usually if I'm doing like volume stuff, it's going to be adding in extra squats or adding in extra pulls.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I think
agree.
y'all
I concur.
thanks. I think y'all are doing the pull plus snatches right now too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm coming to Blue Wave after this.
Nice.
Just so you know. Yeah.
Did you check in?
I did check in.
Good job.
I remembered.
We're probably gonna get kicked off here in about 5 minutes. Anything else you want to talk about? Well, tell us about some of your short-term goals. I mean, those might have changed a lot because of like COVID and everything right now.
Yeah.
Some of your short-term goals, like what do you have coming up, and then some of your long-term goals.
Well, I guess like my main goal right now is just to build a really strong foundation,
Hmm.
and just to stay injury free for the most part. Well, I want to do Vegas. I hope they don't cancel that, but that would be my next competition. And then I'm doing the senior nationals that's combined with AO finals at the end of the year. So I wouldn't say I have any numbers that I'm specifically trying to hit because I just don't know where I'll be at. But I want them to look pretty. That's what I know.
That's good. Yeah, I think if we get the ability to compete in September, that'll help really figure out what's going to go on in December. If we don't
Yeah.
get, ability to do that, it just always makes it a little bit harder not being able to get onto a competition platform. And then
Yeah,
we're
but
also,
there's some local ones that I've been seeing
yeah,
come up. So if not Vegas, then one of those to kind of see where I'm at.
yeah. I, we were talking about that. I was talking with some of the other board members about that, and we feel pretty good that we are going to have AO3. I just think that it's going to be, structured in a way where we might only have 10 people per session and one person on a warm-up platform, so which wouldn't be the worst thing.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think they can fit a lot of platforms in there too, because it's a huge convention center or
Yeah,
whatever hotel. That was my favorite competition
it was my
that I've
favorite.
ever competed at. I loved it.
Yeah, it was my favorite venue as well. It's
Yeah,
just so much space. It was easy.
yeah,
It was cold.
yeah. The lighting was good too.
Yeah. So AO3, if we're having it, for sure the Nationals AO final combination.
Yeah.
But kind of like I've talked with everybody, I think at this point everybody's just kind of trying to get stuff in 2020, and really
Hmm.
goals are likely being set in 2021. Um,
Yeah,
if all this stuff doesn't just like ramp back up again. But
yeah. I'm
what are some of
what?
your like longer term goals though, like 3 years, 5 years?
My long-term goals. I mean, I would like to podium at a national competition.
Hmm.
Well, I did at university, so I'd like to do it at AO finals or senior nationals, and
Hmm.
then I want to make an international team.
Yeah,
I
for
miss
sure.
competing internationally. It's really fun.
Yeah. We've obviously had that conversation a few times, and we've set those goals together, and
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I
want
think
bigger legs too. That's another goal.
yeah,
I want to add some decent size
yeah,
in a few
absolutely.
years. Yeah.
Um, what weight class are you going to compete in September?
Probably 64. I'm weighing around like 64.5 to 65 in the morning.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that's a lot of like water weight and just being bloated and whatnot. But because I would like to cut down to that weight, I want to be a lean 64. But I'm sitting there. I'm there.
good, good, good. Yeah, I've had people going back and forth during quarantine. They're either dropping weight or they're gaining a lot of weight right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been kind of just like, my weight fluctuates a lot. So it's not hard for me to manipulate it. It's a lot of like water weight and just, you know,
Yeah,
carb
yeah.
intake. So, but I
Uh,
don't want to cut to 59 again because my legs get too small.
yeah, and I think agreed. I think
And
you
I'm
know
tall.
for you, yeah, your height it makes more sense. And when really we want to put some size on your legs and your midline just to get the back and the
Yeah.
legs real strong and stable, I think
Yeah.
the 64 is probably where you're going to see like the most increase in strength. And
Yeah.
I
I
would
agree.
argue that your technique's already really good. So the main thing is getting strong.
Yeah. Yeah. Just gotta get fat.
Just gotta get fat. Come on now. You just
I'm
said a little,
joking. I use that as a positive term.
yeah. Um, we only got a few minutes, but kind of talk about that. Like, I do find that women typically want to go down in weight classes and men typically want to go up in weight classes. Was it a hard choice to find like come to terms with, all right, we're going to move up a weight class? Like, was that hard for you?
No, I mean, if you're talking about like body image wise, no. The only reason why I wanted to cut to 59 was because I felt like I was more competitive there at the time.
Hmm.
So I just thought, so that's the only reason why I cut. It wasn't to get skinnier or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that's just not a concern for me. I feel like that's a concern for a lot of people though.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
And
I don't care
what
about it. I
that's
don't care if
like,
I'm a little chubby.
what about those athletes though that also like that? So they're like, okay, I can keep doing these cuts and continue to qualify for nationals. Or I can take maybe a year off of qualifying for nationals and try to go up a weight class.
With your composition, then I think you should. Cutting's just so hard on the body, and I think it takes
Yeah.
a lot of weight from your performance. Um, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Um, so
But
yeah,
I agree. I don't think people really realize how much of a toll that really harsh cuts take on the body. And then when you're trying to do that 3, 4 times, can you hear me?
sorry, my phone's about to die, so I just don't want to like die on you.
Oh, it's all good. Like I said, we were down to like a couple minutes before Instagram kicks us off,
Yeah,
anyways. But I
yeah,
agree. I think that, people don't realize how much cutting weight actually does affect your body.
yeah.
And it does performance, and over time, it can really actually weaken you.
Cried the last time I had to cut for nationals. I was crying, and just emotionally too.
Yeah, for sure. It's draining. Anyways, looks like you're frozen again. And we got about 90 seconds. But hey, thanks again for jumping on. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you back in the gym, and hopefully you can get back to coaching some of your youth athletes soon too.